Good morning. You know, I've never been asked by anyone how I would like to be buried or any wishes I may have after my demise. I find you folks incredibly lucky to have been given the responsibility to carry out or to attend any of those wishes. Memorializing people is a daily practice as thoughts and experiences constantly remind you of your association with those who you've lost. It mainly brings you smiles, enormous smiles, as the pleasant reminders will soon have this experience added. To say, yep, I sent my mom or my dad or whomever into space, wow. The looks you will get when you get back home to your office or even in the gym. You heard me, you'll say. Don't give me that look. We are honored to have you here in Las Cruces, New Mexico, for the launch of the Aurora Flight. You've made this trip to once again say goodbye, so long, or until we meet again. I've officiated a few of these services, and it still makes me overjoyed to be able to watch what I've seen from all of those missions. The tears and the hugs that come from each and every one of those, and the overall feeling of accomplishment and relief. Celestis has made this particular accomplishment possible in the weeks, months, and even years it took you to finally get here is now upon you. I'm so sorry, I'm almost finished. I ask that you, I'm so sorry, I love you. Where was I, for God's sakes? Okay, I ask that you not forget us after we have fulfilled our duties to you, and that you remember our smiles as well as the many folks here, because at this time, we are all family. Our common purpose, our singular mission, I know you've heard that before, but this is what we're all here for, and I'm so happy to see you, and there's more to come, especially tomorrow morning. I now present to you our CEO of Celestis Memorial Spaceflights, Mr. Charles Chafer.
Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be able to welcome you to the 19th Celestis Memorial Spaceflight. And yes, I've been to them all. Each one is special, each one is unique, each one reflects the fact that there are lives well lived who are being celebrated. What makes our launch so special to me is that you all came here, you didn't know any of these folks, right? You came in faith, you came to share the ultimate stage of grief, we hope, which is closure, with a family that you won't ever forget once you've gone through these 3 days of mission. It's really a very special experience. And we'll be remembering each and every person on board, in some case, Cat on board. But today I'd like you to think about yourselves just a little bit. You guys are heroes in so many ways. You knew that your mom, your dad, your son, your daughter, your sister, your brother, your best friend really wanted and deserved what we believe to be the most special service on or off the planet. And you made it happen. And you persevered through COVID. My goodness, you persevered through everything. And you're here today, not at all certain what's going to happen. That's part of the charm of a space launch. The anticipation, the knowledge that something very important and rare is about to occur, and that you're the one that made that happen. We wouldn't be here today without you. And as a result, I want you to just give yourself a moment of congratulations. We got here. We made it. We survived. And that's really important, because spaceflight is perseverance. I had the honor and pleasure of working for Mercury astronaut Deke Slayton for more than a decade. And Deke's story is known by many, but he was slated to fly the second Earth orbital flight right after John Glenn in 1962. Some doctor, as Deke would have said, found a minor heart murmur. He was grounded for 13 years, could not fly, could not do what he was meant to do. Now, he kept himself busy during that time. He was the head of the astronaut office, among other things, selecting the first man to land on the moon. But his is a story of perseverance. He just kept working it until finally in '75, he was able to fly Apollo-Soyuz. In many ways, that is the microcosm of spaceflight. It's not easy. I tell everybody I have a t-shirt that says space is hard. It is. You're going to encounter a really amazing crew out in Spaceport America vertical launch area that did the same thing. They persevered. They followed their dream. Now they're on their, I don't know whether it's the 19th or 20th mission. And by the way, that's 19 or 20 ahead of Sir Richard. At Spaceport America, because they persevered. So you all persevered. My staff, who is great, persevered. Everyone is here because something more important than themselves is happening and will happen. And this is a really appropriate time as we celebrate the lives of everyone for you to think a little bit about, hey, yeah, I did it. I gave my father his dreams. So that's really all I wanted to say. I'll get another shot at you later in the event. But I do have the distinct honor today of introducing our guest speaker, astronaut Mike Mullane. Talking with Mike a little bit before the show here today. And he's just such an astronaut. Charlie, I don't want a lot of fluff. Just say three things. West Point graduate, Vietnam. There's a lot in very few words. I will add one more accomplishment, which he did not authorize me to do. And that accomplishment is he married a really nice, engaging person. And I won't embarrass her by making her stand up, but we want to welcome Mullane with it today as well. Mike?
Thank you, Charles, for that kind introduction, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you heard, excuse me, as you heard, I had the very rare privilege of flying in space, and I'm going to share with you some stories about that. Also, before time gets away, and I forget to mention it, I'm wearing this so I don't look like Uncle Harry, okay? I look something like an ancient astronaut. But at the meet and greet, don't be hesitant to come up and want to get a photo posed with me or to get an autograph on a program or something. Okay, that's why I'm here. So I wanted to get that off the table. Okay, let me tell you what it was like to fly on the space shuttle, take you vicariously on a shuttle ride into space. Let's see here if I can get this working. Just a second. Oops. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, around 3 hours before liftoff, we walked from the crew quarters, climbed into the crew van, drove to the launch pad, took the elevator to the cockpit level, exited that, walk across the access arm. What do you think your heart rate is right about there? I guarantee you're going to feel every beat in your throat. It's going to be choking you. In the white room, we dressed in our harnesses. Then we get out on our hands and knees and crawl into the cockpit. There'll be technicians inside who help lay us back into our chairs. They will strap us to those chairs. And then as we leave, as they leave, they will close the side hatch. The access arm will be retracted, and we're going to be left alone for about probably better part of 2 hours waiting for the launch. Hopefully, it could extend much longer than that. But anyway, you're going to be in the grips of two fundamental emotions while you're awaiting launch, one of which is fear, gut fear. You will fear for your life while you're out there. At the same time that fear is on you, you're going to be boundlessly joyful, because for most astronauts, it truly is a lifetime quest to make this flight. And with that at hand, you're going to be overwhelmed with joy. At T-minus 6 seconds, the 3 liquid engines start. At T0, the hold down bolts blow. There's 4 explosive bolts at the skirts of each of these solid boosters. Those were ignited, and now you're slapped into your seats with a force of about 2 Gs, 2 times gravity as the rocket leaps off the launch pad. 2 minutes and 12 seconds up, the boosters, you get, for the first 2 minutes, you get this very rocky ride. 2 minutes up, the boosters burn out, and you're allowed, bang, you see this whip of fire across the windscreens as these things are explosively separated. And now for the next 6.5 minutes, you're running on just those liquid fueled engines. But from here on up, it was very smooth, very quiet. The only way you could tell you were even moving, besides looking at your instruments, were the G-forces slowly building on your body, and those would stabilize at 3 Gs, 3 times the force of gravity. 8.5 minutes up, the autopilot shut off the engines. The gas tank was empty. It was jettisoned. All that remained now headed to orbit was the winged vehicle. We called that the orbiter. And now we're on our way to the International Space Station, where we're going to have the great good fortune of rendezvousing with George Clooney, Sandra Bullock, and we will get to meet Matt Damon on his way back from Mars. All those Hollywood people beat us up there. Okay, I wanted to tell you about my 3 missions that I flew just very briefly. I flew three times on the shuttle. As I said, that was a rare privilege. And I want to give a shout out for that incredible NASA team. There's thousands of people, 10,000s of people, really, when you think of all the subcontractors out there supporting these programs. So we get into space on the shoulders of a lot of people. My first mission was the first mission of the Orbiter Discovery. That is now at the Udvar Hazy Air and Space Smithsonian out at Dulles Field. If you ever go in there, that's the first vehicle I flew on her very first mission, my first mission. That was in 1984. We had 3 of these communication satellites that we released. I want to tell you something interesting that happened on that mission. On our first attempt, the 3 liquid engines started. They started 6 seconds before the boosters are ignited, so they can be checked by computers and shut off if there's a problem. Well, on our mission, they started, there was a problem, all 3 of them shut off, which really, when you're sitting on 4 million pounds of propellant, gets your attention when you're expecting to be launched, and instead you get this roar and vibration and then silence. But what really ratcheted up the fear factor was the word fire. The ground reported seeing a fire at the base of the vehicle. Again, sitting on 4 million pounds of propellant, that'll get your adrenaline glands going. But fortunately, they were able to get the fire out, and we came back 2 months later, and they fixed the engine problem. We got airborne, spaceborne on my first shuttle mission. My second mission was a secret military mission. I can't discuss the payload at all, what the purpose of that mission was. Interesting thing that happened there was a very dangerous thing that occurred during launch. The tip of the right side solid rocket booster broke off and shotgunned our heat shield. All that white scarring you see there is damage to our heat shield. You have to re-enter through that blast furnace of 3,000 degree heat on entry, and now we were entering it with a seriously wounded a heat shield. And afterwards, you're looking 6 inches deep into that mosaic of black tiles that protect the shuttle from melting on reentry. And you can see one tile is completely blasted free, and it very narrowly missed burning through all the way into the vehicle, in which case that would have been a disaster. My third mission was another secret military mission that I can't discuss. Well, okay, that's the mission where we rendezvous with the aliens. Yeah, okay, I get asked that question a lot. How do you go to the bathroom? Have I seen any aliens? Let me answer the alien question. I've never seen any aliens or UFOs. I personally believe there's alien life elsewhere in the universe, given the enormity of the universe. There's so many stars. These are some numbers that are out there on best guesses on how many stars are in the universe, and that's pronounced 10 billion trillion. Many estimates are much higher than that, but this works out to 10,000 stars for every grain of sand on the Earth. Now that is really hard to get your head around, isn't it? But I'll offer this picture here. This is the Hubble Deep Space, one of they look the deepest that Hubble could view into the universe. And what you're seeing there, every tiny dot of light there, those aren't stars. Every single dot of light there is a galaxy of hundreds of millions of stars. Now get this around, get your head around this. If you took a grain of sand and held it at arm's length, that's the part of the sky that was blotted out by that photo right there. And you think of how many trillions of stars are in just that photo. And now how many grains of sand would cover the celestial sphere, and you image all of those, get your head around the magnitude of the stars that are out there in the universe. And by the way, I know we all have different belief systems, afterlife belief systems, but I personally believe people who looked at the sky and wondered about the universe, the spirits of those people are now no longer wondering. They were seeing these things. They're experiencing these things. That's my personal belief. Okay, let me tell you how I ended up being an astronaut, my life story. I was born 3 weeks after World War II ended, so I grew up in the very dark shadow of World War II. It's a very impressionable young boy hearing stories about that war. My dad was a World War II aviator. He regaled my brothers and I on stories of his adventures in the war. So as I said, I was growing up exposed to World War II and all the heroics of our pilots in that war, which were memorialized in Hollywood movies that I was taking in as, again, a very impressionable 5-6-year-old boy. I was chewing my way through acres of bubble gum to acquire these trading cards, airplane trading cards. So no surprise, very young, I wanted to be a pilot. Meanwhile, Hollywood was churning out these science fiction movies on how people, astronauts they called them, were going to fly to distant planets and explore those. And boy, does that feed your imagination as a young boy. Then I was 12 years old when Sputnik was launched. And no longer did I want to be just a pilot. I wanted to be one of these guys, a heroic astronaut. John Glenn, Alan Shepard. I wanted to fly rocket ships into space. I was growing up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, just a couple 100 miles up the road here. And it was a vast desert right outside my door where I could indulge my interest in homemade rocketry. It wasn't so much rocketry as pipe bombs with fins. It's amazing I didn't blow myself to hell and back with these things. But I believe I was like many of the people here I'm seeing memorialized, many of your loved ones. They were like me. We had a shared wonder of the sky. As a kid, I would go out and I'd lay out there and take a sleeping bag out in the desert, walk 100 yards away from my house. Great night skies back then. Look up and watch the stars, dreamed about what it would be like to fly out to distant planets. And I'm sure many of your loved ones share that same relationship to my spirit, the wonder of the universe. Going back to my rocket days, this is my 1960 sophomore year high school science fair project on how rockets might one day parachute back to Earth from space. Here I am testing a parachute extraction system from the roof of my parents' house. Dumb idea. Neighbors were sure happy to see me leave. Here's a parachute extraction test right there. Here I am using my dad's car as a wind tunnel. Notice the very safe use of this step ladder right here. This picture I have titled Brainless Teenager. Here I am setting up one of my creations for launch. Here I am legging it out after lighting a fuse. This is called hazard mitigation teenager style. Light a fuse and run. Here's ignition, there's detonation. Well, I tell you, I hear so often from people, they see that I flew in space, the dangers of space, flew combat in Vietnam, and they think, wow, what dangers you live in your life. And I tell them, trust me, the most dangerous period in any man's life isn't whatever we do as adult men. It's when we're teenage boys. When we're teenage boys, we don't have a brain in our skulls. Exhibit A right there. Here's one of my successful launches. Here's one of my rockets parachuting back to Earth. Very low budget space program. My capsule was a Maxwell House coffee can. My nose cone was a rolled up piece of acetate plastic that was masking taped into a pointy shape. My parachute was the plastic that covers the clothes from the dry cleaners with kite string scotch tape to it. So low budget space program. Here I am recovering one of my rockets. I want you to notice the young woman walking off the screen to the right there, about 19 years old. That is now my wife, Donna, that Charles mentioned. She's in the back there. She'll be at the meet and greet that'll follow. But she's a woman that will never be able to say, I didn't know what I was getting into. Not when I have this video. Here's going back to my science fair project. I want to share with you the first two sentences of this of the report I had to write for this project. The first sentence, and I was writing this in 1960, reads, today, this country and many others throughout the world are steadily working toward the conquest of space. Then I continued and wrote, someday I also plan to participate in this great undertaking. I was 14 years old when I wrote that sentence. 25 years later, at age 39, I'm floating around in the cockpit of Discovery on my rookie space shuttle mission. Now, that is a dream come true by any human's definition, and I suspect many of you right now are thinking, well, of course it happened to you, Melaine. You were born different than me. You were born lavishly gifted. You were a genius child. You had these incredible talents. It was a piece of cake for you to hop, skip, and jump up the yellow brick road and become an astronaut. Well, let's investigate this. This is my senior high school graduation yearbook entry, and down in ambition, it says to attend the Air Force Academy. I could not get into the Air Force Academy. My SAT scores weren't high enough. West Point took me, which frankly doesn't say a lot about West Point. But in all fairness to West Point, I was a third alternate for my congressional district. I barely made it into West Point. At a graduation of West Point, I wasn't on the stage getting awards for academic excellence. So destiny did not have genius to work with. Let me show you a few other things destiny struggled with. This is the varsity club in my high school, the star athletes in my high school. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not in this picture. Destiny didn't have athleticism to work with. This is the prom or homecoming. Doesn't matter. You wouldn't see me in any of these pictures because I never had a date in high school. Never once had a date. I married the first woman who kissed me. Seriously, I don't recommend this as a way of finding a life partner, by the way. I wasn't ever elected to student government. This says it all about my high school years. Oh, it gets worse. This is the dedication pages out of my senior high school yearbook. I have one dedication and it reads, you miss Korea, but here's hoping you make Vietnam. I swear to you, that is the only dedication I have in my entire high school yearbook. So what does that say about popularity? Well, I tell you, it does beg the question, seeing those pictures and hearing those stories. How in the world did this geeky, nerdy kid become an astronaut? Well, I look back on my life now and realize I had a couple things that were going for me. One of which was I had from a very early age, as you saw earlier, an intense interest in space and aviation. All my interest was focused in that. There was never any doubt what I was going to do in my life. I was going to be involved with airplanes and rockets. That is incredibly rare, and I think everybody will agree with it. I never saw it in any of my children, this type of interest. Most kids go out, drift around for many years trying to figure out what they want to do with what major they want to get in college, what they're going to do in their life. And that's the path of my kids, my grandkids. None of my kids have ever, all of my kids, 3 kids, but they've all said they have never met anybody that had that type of focus. It is a very, very rare blessing to have it. And it paid off for me to have this intense interest in aviation. I needed that. I needed focus. So I had focus. What I needed, though, also was tenacity. And I learned this from my parents. As I said, my dad was a World War II aviator. He survived the war. He married my mom when she was 18 years old in the middle of the war. He survived the war, came back to live the American dream with my mom. But then in 1955, he remained in the Air Force after the war. And we were stationed in Hickam, Hawaii in 1955. At age 33 years old, my dad was crippled for life with polio. Never again walked, spent the rest of his life on crutches and braces and in a wheelchair. This time in my parents' lives, they had 6 kids to raise. And you can just imagine the enormity of the difficulty for a family of 6 kids. Here you got the primary breadwinner in a wheelchair at a time in America in 1955 where impaired people are not highly valued. And this could have gone down very bad. But my dad and my mom were heroes. They exhibited heroic tenacity of pushing through the obstacles of polio to complete their mission of raising this family of these children. One of obviously me too. And it was that I was 10 years old and this was going down. And I can see now I was imprinted with this immense sense of tenacity. So I had focus and tenacity, but that in and of itself doesn't bring a dream come true, folks. What I lacked was a belief I could elevate myself. I was solidly locked in my youth and in teenage angst. I didn't believe in myself. What changed? Well, so I was terrified of failure. I didn't try out for sports. I was afraid of failure. Didn't ask girls out for dates, afraid of rejection. Didn't run for student government, afraid of failure. What changed? West Point. That's what changed. At West Point, I walked in there. Let me tell you, you want a world of hurt to fall on you. Say things like, I can't, I'll fail, it's too hard. A world of hurt will fall on you if you ever utter those type of words. So for 4 years, I was challenged over and over. Things I could not believe that I could possibly ever do. At the end of the day, I could look back and see I did it. And that belief in myself, that I could elevate myself, combined with focus and tenacity, is an incredible, powerful rocket fuel for me. And that's what propelled me ultimately into space. Continuing my life story, I married my wife a week after graduation from West Point. 9 months later, she gave birth to a boy-girl twin set. And by the way, this was before the age of ultrasound. You talk about a surprise. Had another daughter 3 years later. Here they are growing up a couple years ago in this photo. Entered flight training in 1968 with this dream of being a pilot, test pilot, astronaut. Guess what? That dream ended immediately when I went into the Air Force. My eyesight was too poor to be a pilot. I ended up in the back seat of the fighter F-4 Phantom jet. So at this point in my life, 1968, I have no hope of ever being an astronaut. I'm not a pilot because all the astronauts are pilots and test pilots. Went to Vietnam, left Donna and the babies at home. Went to Vietnam. There I was flying in the back seat of the reconnaissance version of the F-4 Phantom. Our mission was to fly low, fast over enemy targets, photographing them for the intelligence communities to work with attacks and analysis of previous attacks. Ended up in Europe for 4 years in the Air Force in the Cold War, NATO forces supporting our defense against Russia. The Cold War graduate school. Boy, I'll tell you, this was one I needed every bit of tenacity and focus to get through. Same here, backseat, of course, at test pilot school. These were all very, very, very tough courses. But I had that belief that I could do it, that West Point taught me, combined with that tenacity my parents taught me, and with that focus I was blessed with. And that's what kept propelling me forward. By the way, at Eglin after test pilot school, backseater course at test pilot school, I went to Eglin Air Base, doing weapons testing on these type of aircraft. This is an F-111 here. Interesting story. I don't have time to go into it, but I ended up in a F-111 that ultimately crashed, and at the last second had to pull the ejection handle. The F-111 has an escape rocket that blasts the entire cockpit free. A parachute is catapulted out, and the capsule with the 2 crew members is lowered to the ground. So that was actually my very first rocket ride back in 1976. But how in the world did I end up being an astronaut, though? I wasn't a pilot. I wasn't a test pilot. Well, it all changed in 1978 when NASA, actually in 76, NASA announced they are selecting astronauts for the space shuttle program. They have this new position called mission specialist astronaut that does not require you to be a pilot. So I immediately applied to the mission specialist position on the space shuttle and was blessed enough to get selected in 1978 in the first group of space shuttle astronauts. Now, I noticed there's some young people out here, and I want to leave them, but actually these are life lessons for all of us, 8 to 80 folks. I think it always applies. So I want to just close with some of these life lessons I learned from my own story. Do your best, always and forever. The only reason I'm an astronaut is because 10 years I was doing my best when I didn't think it counted, only to find out it all counted when NASA changed that selection process, non-pilot astronaut. So do your best, always, it's gonna count. You just can't know when it's gonna count. We're better than we think. We have incredible capabilities. Now, West Point taught me that. So knowing that, dream big, set very lofty goals for yourself. Don't be timid, be tenacious, and don't be afraid of failure. I was paralyzed by failure. I wish I would have known what old Michael Jordan said about failure when I was in high school. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. What he's saying is every time he failed, he learned something he could apply to the next game, the next drive, the next pass, the next shot. He failed his way into the NBA Hall of Fame. I think that's very important. We all know is don't be afraid of failure. We learn when we fail. We can apply that as we press ahead in our lives. Take care of your body, obviously. Make your education priority one. All you youngsters out there, get as much education as you possibly can. Get team skills. Learn how to be a team member. Nobody gets into space by themselves. This Celestis, no, this doesn't get done without teamwork. Everywhere, teamwork is valued. Learn to be a team leader. Learn to be an inspiring team leader and a team player. And make this self-challenge a life quest. Never give up on it. I do a lot of mountain climbing, and I'm still doing it. Just fact, I know it sounds bragging, but I'm going to say it. At age 77, just a couple of months ago, I was September. I was 77 years old. I went out and climbed Mount Harvard. I've climbed 41 of the Colorado 14,000 foot peaks. There's 54 of them. Climbed 41 of them in my life. I'd climbed this one previously, but I wanted to prove to myself I could do it again at age 77. So what am I going to say here? Geezers rule, folks. Okay, and I'm going to finish right now by just making one point here. One of the most beautiful sights, the most beautiful sight I ever saw when I was in space was watching a space sunrise. Imagine it's dark. You're on the midnight side of the Earth. Earth is dark. Space is dark. You're headed east at 5 miles a second into just blackness. And now you look out and you'll see this thin, eyelash thin arc of indigo. That's the first indication of sunrise. This separating this arc of indigo, separating the black of space and the black of Earth. And as you race eastward, the other reds start filling in. The other blues start filling in the reds until you have this incredible rainbow display that's on the horizon. And I was privileged to see that. But again, I think every one of your loved ones who's flying had that wonder of what it was like to be out there in space. And I believe their spirits are seeing this and a lot more. That's my belief system. And I'll leave it with that. God bless all of you and your loved ones, and Godspeed to all of you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay, guys, in this wonderful world of technology that we have, we're going to do a quick 30-second pause so that we can save some equipment, and I'll be waiting before we can resume, so about 30 seconds from now. So I just like to share a quick story with you guys for the 30 seconds that we have, and that is the wonderful people that I've met with Celestis, and of course, a lot of you kind of expect a company person to come up here and praise their bosses and whatever just to get that annual bonus and all that kind of stuff. No, that's not true. I'm an architect in Orlando, Florida. This, in fact, is a hobby of mine that I do this, and the people that recruited me for the while that I've been with them. You get to know them. When you first meet a boss, you're on your best behavior. You're going through this interview process. You're probably lying through your teeth and whatever to get the job. No, but I think Charles saw something in me that thought that could be of some sort of assistance to the company of Celestis. So during our monthly broadcast leading up to a flight, we meet so many people online just giving you mission updates, but our greatest anticipation is seeing you guys, seeing you faces in person. because right now all we're seeing is the chat line. You guys are posting questions and making yourself known to all of us. And there's a lot of names that we remember and even some faces. But when you finally show up, you know, that's the greatest thrill for me, because being a part of a number of flights with Celestis, I've become a great observer. I understand that the mourning process that you go through when you do lose a loved one, it never goes away. I lost my mother about a year ago this upcoming March, and it stings. Stays with you, never leaves. It stings. So to give you something very, very unusual and unlike any other memorial service that you guys have attended is my greatest thrill, because when you're out there in the middle of the freezing New Mexico desert tomorrow, you know, we've never done a launch this late in the year before, so that's why I had to throw this barb at my boss right now. Seriously, November, really? Anyway, so the thrill, it's gonna be dark, you're gonna watch the sun come up. Charles will replay all this to you again, and it's just gonna be absolutely fantastic. The New England, oh, by the way, I'm from Orlando, and I saw my breath this morning. Holy mackerel. I can't touch it. Wow. What is this? Not only that, what's that stuff out there sticking out of the ground? It's mountains. They actually do exist. Florida's flat. I can see every launch from the Cape from my front door. I just step outside and I look, and there it goes. You know, it's the thrill of space flight. How we doing in the back there? All righty. So I'm going to shut up now and leave. And I think I'm supposed to introduce somebody. This is a very interesting and incredible poem that you're about to hear. And it's read by, I actually have mine. It's entitled, You Want to Be a Physicist to Speak, You Want a Physicist to Speak at Your Funeral. You want a physicist to speak at your funeral. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Darcy Harmon.
Good morning. You want a physicist to speak at your funeral. You want the physicist to talk to your grieving family about the conservation of energy, so they will understand that your energy has not died. You want the physicist to remind your sobbing mother about the first law of thermodynamics, that no energy gets created in the universe and none is destroyed. You want your mother to know that all your energy, every vibration, every BTU of heat, every wave of every particle that was her beloved child remains with her in this world. You want the physicist to tell your weeping father that amid energies of the cosmos, you gave as good as you got. And at one point, you'd hope that the physicist would step down from the pulpit and walk to your broken-hearted spouse there in the pew and tell him that all the photons that ever bounced off your face, all the particles whose paths were interrupted by your smile, by the touch of your hair, hundreds of trillions of particles have raced off like children, their ways forever changed by you. And as your widow rocks in the arms of a loving family, may the physicist let her know that all the photons that bounced from you were gathered in the particle detectors that are her eyes, that those photons created within her constellations of electromagnetically charged neurons whose energy will go on forever. And the physicist will remind the congregation of how much of all of our energy is given off as heat. There may be a few fanning themselves with programs, as he says it. And he will tell them that the warmth that flowed through you in life is still here, still part of all that we are, even as we who mourn continue the heat of our own lives. And you'll want the physicist to explain to those who loved you that they need not have faith. Indeed, they should not have faith. Let them know that they can measure, that scientists have measured precisely the conservation of energy and found it accurate, verifiable, and consistent across space and time. You can hope your family will examine the evidence and satisfy themselves that the science is sound and that they'll be comforted to know your energy is still around. According to the law of the conservation of energy, not a bit of you is gone. You're just less orderly. Amen. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It really hit my soul there for a moment there, but thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I'd like to present to you our Celestis President, Colby Youngblood.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking Elsa and Darcy, local Las Cruces talent from the New Mexico State University. So once again, I'd like to applaud them. We like to source local talent, and they were fantastic. Thank you. Most importantly, though, I'd like to thank you. We would not be here celebrating your loved ones if it wasn't for you. So from Charlie, myself, and all the staff, just want you to know that you guys are loved and are appreciated. And we truly honor the opportunity to celebrate your loved one. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to remember, celebrate, and honor the reason why we're here. And that's your loved one. So we're going to do this in an orderly fashion. I'll call up the first family. That family will come up, they'll speak. I'll call a second family and have that second family in queue. As each family steps down, I'll have another family, and just, you can step to the side wherever you're at, and when that family is up speaking, when they step down, you'll just step right up. It'll all make sense as we go through. So I'd like to call up the first family, the family of Dr. Philip K. Chapman. And the following family will be the family of Dr. William R. Kropp, Jr.
Good morning, everybody. Boy, this is I really wasn't expecting to speak at all. I want to thank everyone for coming. It makes it so much more special to have people who didn't know Phil at all to come and memorialize him. I think it really made it special for me. Phil was an Apollo astronaut, which was the program right before the shuttle program where Mike flew. And Phil was, well, he always was an odd duck, but he was among the few scientist astronauts. Everyone would love to fly in space, which is why we're here. But Phil was primarily motivated by doing experiments. His big interest in life was gravity. He would have liked to have invented an anti-gravity machine. And one of the reasons he would have loved to fly in space is to do time travel. He read science fiction up to his very last day. So I don't know how he would feel about this flight, but it would be for his remains an experience of weightlessness. I hope he likes it. I think he will much more enjoy his next flight next year, which would be the first ever in history, ever, when human remains will fly into deep space and not come back. What makes this flight special for me is he's coming back. I'll get him home again. So thank you so much.
The family of Dr. William R. Kropp, Jr., followed by the family of Paula Pitts.
I'm kind of realizing that I might need reading glasses. I have like a light I can shine on it. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Is that okay? Okay. Okay. Yeah, thank you. As I searched through a lifetime of memories of my dad, William Kropp, to capture the essence of who he truly was, I realized I must have said 1,000 times that surely he will walk through the sunset of his life with his working boots on. My dad held a brilliant fascination with science from his early youth. That passion launched into a lifelong pursuit of studying the neutrino. Although his contributions to neutrino physics were notable, it was his dedication to education that fostered in me a joy for learning. My dad always said, the more you come to understand a topic, no matter how simple, the more you come to realize how complex and beautiful it is. His joy in living a purposeful life impacted me and how I live my life. He would often say something insightful about life's transient nature, and once expressed the sentiment that each subsequent decade passes more swiftly than the one before it, as a reminder that I live my life with intention and purpose. My dad's aspirations affected my ambitions, but over time I realized it was his spirit of humility that encapsulated the ideals that guided his life. In 1995, his mentor and colleague, Dr. Reines, was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for neutrino detection. As Dr. Reines was not well at the time, my dad gave his acceptance speech on his behalf, an honor that he never even disclosed to us until after he returned from Sweden. I'm so nervous, I'm sorry. We are ever grateful to Dr. Reines' cousin, Dr. Leonard Cole, for the countless hours he spent interviewing my dad, discovering Reines' life and contributions to neutrino physics, and for capturing the story in his book, Chasing the Ghost. My dad's love for natural and creative beauty was ever present throughout our childhood adventures with our mom, Carol, into landscapes filled with quartz, obsidian mountains, the geothermal wonders of Lassen, and exposure to dramatic complexities of Carmina Burana and Tchaikovsky. But shining brightly above his adoration of nature and the arts was my dad's love for family. As he created emotion memories throughout our childhood, his gift of love for Katie and me was abundant in their midst, forever shining through endearing memories of bunny ears, camping fairies, and his playful way of teasing us about the man in the moon. He loved our husbands, Dennis and Patrick, intensely. He held them in the utmost regard, acknowledging their dedication as husbands and fathers, often remarking that he could never possibly measure up to them. His passion to both sciences and for the natural and creative beauty of the world will forever shine on through my sister and me, through our husbands, and through each of his 6 grandchildren, Shane, Corey, Karen, Trey, Samantha, and Jessica. Dad, may your heart be free and your spirit forever belong to the universe, the mathematical beauty of which you dedicate your life to reveal. I will forever cherish that look in your sparkling blue eyes as they shined with loving guidance throughout my life. Your wisdom and precious gifts will live on forever through all of us, and may your guiding light, that we be of good cheer, shine eternally. I love you, Dad. Love, Min. P.S. I love that your nickname for me was Min.
Can you shine the light on there for me? Hi, I'm Katie, Bill's younger daughter. As my dad, Dr. William R. Kropp, follows his son on this incredible journey, his bright eyes will shine in my heart and his sweet smile on my face. His humble and cheerful demeanor, brilliance, integrity, and noble character were abound in his Boy Scout adventures with his dad, his lifelong college roommates, colleagues, and his Irish cousins, and the admirable particle physics career that he had spanning over half a century at UC Irvine's Department of Physics and Astronomy. As a research physicist, he appeared on the cover of Physics magazine. To study neutrinos, he worked underground in mines like the Morton Salt Mine under Lake Erie, the gold mines of South Africa, and a mountain in Japan for Super K. I cherish the piggy banks, the salt rocks, and other souvenirs he brought home to us. Dad drove us in the middle of the night to view Halley's Comet. He coached me on my life's major decisions, and his encouragement to follow your passion and the rest will fall into a place taught me to trust myself. With my mom, Carol, our mom, Carol, and my sister, Marianne, we went on those memorable adventures. My favorite trips were hiking among Hawaii's volcanoes, majestic redwoods, Lassen's paddle wheels, Wisconsin lakes, Zion's snow-capped mountains, Montana glaciers, taking hovercrafts and trains across Great Britain and through the Alps to the Matterhorn, and Bearfield National Park camping trips with his metal canteens and campfire songs, and the tailgate lunches left Marianne and I chanting, "We want to see Paul Bunyan." You can see that Dad loved to travel. He even climbed Mount Whitney. He gifted me his travel bug. My husband, Patrick, and our children, Jessica and Samantha, and her boyfriend, Levi, and my sister and Dennis's family will always remember paying tribute to him and forever hear him reciting in an old house in Paris in the majestic Tuolumne Meadows. Dad gave the best toasts at any occasion, and his witty yet gentle humor with his dear sister Noreen was endless. Dad's kindness and generosity were known far and wide. He was often heard humming and had a deep love for music. I remember him strumming his mandolin as he waited up for us. Dad, I will never forget you. I love you, and I'll forever hear you singing, "The sun will come out tomorrow." Oh, thank you. Should we go this way or this way?
The family of Paula Pitts, followed by the family of Joseph Robert Belan.
Hello, everyone. My mom would have loved to have been here for two reasons. The first, to meet all of you, and the second, to definitely see Earth from its atmosphere. That was one of her main goals, just a glimpse into her life. She leaves behind me, her only daughter, a fiance, Ron, a brother, Bruce, a former husband, Paul, and a named Pinky. She loved animals. So Pinky's still with us and we're taking care of her very well. I know that she'd be happy about that as well. She loved animals. She raised wild rabbits and turtles and you name it, whatever came across the door. Took in the neighbor's dog, took in the hunter's dog, them, put them in the basement till the storms were over and called the hunters to let them know that they were okay. She says talking to them is spirit. Some of her careers, she was in human resources, then she went into arbitrational law. And from there, she left the corporate world and went and drove an 18-wheeler for highway for a while. She was an amazing woman from different aspects. She was always, she's Rappahannock Native American. She was very active in her tribe, as well as my grandmother, as well as my great uncle. They're in the Smithsonian Institute, as well as on the first floor of the Native American Museum in Washington, D.C. So I just wanted to say that I'm so glad I'm able to do this for her. I know this is one of her dreams. I'd like to leave with a poem she had above her bed, and it says, "Oh, chiefs, I am tired. My heart is sick and sad. Where I stand, the sun sets. I will fight no more. I will go to the big teepee, to the great sky, and sit with my chiefs forever." Wamate.
The family of Joseph Robert Belan, followed by the family of James Matthew Weatherby.
Like everyone else, we weren't expecting to speak, but my condolences to everyone here. I know we're all here because we've lost a loved one. But we're here also to celebrate their life. We don't have a eulogy, so to speak. We have a poem because we believe that to remember our loved ones, we have to carry them with us. We have to share their stories with our family and our children and our grandchildren, and they will live on. So this poem is dedicated to my brother from his wife. And it is written by E.E. Cummings, and it is called, "I Carry You in My Heart." I carry your heart with me. I'm sorry, I'm really nervous. I carry it in my heart. I am never without it. Anywhere I go, you go, my dear. And whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate, for you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world, for beautiful you are my world, my true. And it's you or whatever a moon has always meant, and whatever a sun will always sing is you. Here is the deepest secret nobody knows. Here is the root of the root and the bud of the bud and the sky of the sky of a tree called life, which grows higher than a soul can hope or mind can hide. And this is the wonder that's keeping the stars apart. I carry your heart. I carry it in my heart. Carry the heart of your loved ones with you always, and they will always live. Thank you.
The family of James Matthew Weatherby, followed by the family for Robert Todd Evans.
I'm Melody. First time I met James was bowling alley. I was bowling with his grandfather and his uncle on a team. And I thought he came down to see his family bowl. And apparently his grandfather was encouraging him to come down to meet this lovely young lady bowling on his team. And after a few times, he got up the courage to ask me if he could ask me for my phone number so he could call me. I said yes, and then I was a little mean and just waited so that he could actually ask for my phone number. He was always making me laugh. And that first date started about 7 years of friends and dating off and on. Eventually, I said yes. But we clicked on a few things, and love of space and was one of them. We actually did get married on the bridge of the Enterprise in Las Vegas.
Star Trek wedding.
Yes, this is my sister. She was one of my officers. But he always made sure we watched all the launches of whatever was going up, satellites, rockets, didn't matter. But he loved, apparently he loved space from very young because we got a little photo book from his folks that included a couple of letters that he wrote, or assignments, English assignments that he wrote in school. One of them was about his trip to space camp, and he loved it. Couldn't say anything better. That was the most wonderful thing he had ever had. And the two things he put down was go to space, well, work in space, and to write stories. And he did the stories just through gaming, through being a game master, a dungeon master, and creating environments, his own worlds for others and for himself to play in. And then this will be the fulfilling of his second one.
And James was the brother-in-law that anybody could ever want. And one of the reasons that I loved him was because he fully loved my sister and would do anything in the world for her. And yes, anytime we visited and there was a launch, it was bottoms up. We always did a shot for a huzzah. But as soon as that rocket went up, it was huzzah and a shot. And so we really did love visiting them and love his enthusiasm for space.
Yes, and he always made people laugh, and he would be loyal as anything to his friends. He
Yes.
would do anything for them.
Thank you.
So I told most of you, you have the option to not speak if you don't want to. So the previous family elected to pass. So now I'm going to ask the family of Alan Paul Adams to come forward to speak. Followed by the family for John Taylor.
So I'm actually here for my ex-husband, Alan Adams, and also for his daughter, Elaine Adams. I wouldn't say that this was Alan's dream, but he would have loved it. And when his sister and I were planning his services, we saw this Celestis as an option, and we said, oh yeah, Alan would totally dig that. But also, we knew that it would be very special for Elaine. I have to brag a little bit. She's an aerospace engineer. She's like, Mom, I knew you were going to say that. But we knew that she would love this. And it would be the ultimate send-off for her dad, who he loved a thrill. He was a great guy. He was funny. He was always making people laugh. He was friends with everybody that he met, and everyone loved him. Just loved having him around. Elaine has been into space since she was very little. One of my favorite memories of her dad is him holding her up when she was barely verbal, where she had stickers of all the planets on her wall in her room. And he would hold her up and point to each one. And she would say, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And we did that every night. And it was very special. And he always encouraged her. She said, I want to go to space. Unfortunately, he's getting there before her. But she got the last joke on him at his viewing. She tucked in his shirt pocket some of her own hair and one of her kitty's whiskers. So we're hoping that a few molecules of Elaine and Boobert are going up in space today with him as well, or tomorrow as well. So thank you all for being here and for listening. Hope that your loved ones are looking down tomorrow, and thank you, bottom of their hearts.
The family for John Taylor.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Taylor, and I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about my brother, John Vincent Taylor IV, more affectionately known as Jack. He was a loving husband to his wife, Jo Taylor, and a wonderful father to his daughters, Lee and Crystal, and a fine friend to countless other people. He was the best brother I could ever ask for. And more than that, he was my best friend. Jack was always the life of the party, lived life to the fullest. He spent 20 years in the Air Force serving his country. He started as an enlisted man, and he retired as an officer. The Air Force sent Jack to the University of Auburn, where he earned a Bachelor of Science in Astronautical Engineering. He was then assigned to work at Buckley Air National Guard Base, Colorado. His work there was classified, so he couldn't talk much about it. but we had a sneaking suspicion he was keeping an eye on the Russians during the Cold War. Jack then went on to get his master's in aerospace engineering, and the Air Force assigned him to Schriever Air Force Base, and he was working on the global positioning system, GPS as we know it today. His team was responsible for getting the GPS satellites into their geosynchronous orbit. Jack spent the next 35 years working on different parts of the GPS program with companies like Rockwell, Boeing, Lockheed, and Infinity. So next time you use your location services on your cell phone, know my brother did his part. It's only fitting that he gets to take a ride into space after dedicating much of his life to it. Jack, we sure miss you. Thank you.
Elsa? Thank you again, Elsa. I'd like to call the family for Zachary Wimmer up, followed by family for John V. Taylor.
No, go ahead. This is totally unexpected, but I'm so thankful that we have the opportunity to do this. My name is Kristen. This is my husband, Carrie, and we are the parents of Zachary John Wimmer. I don't really know where to begin with Zach. He always did everything his own way. He was a teacher in the education system, and he and his wife had the opportunity to live in Washington, D.C. because he was a history teacher. And his wife, Caitlin, was an advocate for domestic violence and children in need. Zach had the most beautiful smile that you could ever ask for. He was independent, and he gave all of his love to his students and staff and colleagues. His favorite love was a basketball. And apparently, as a mom, I didn't know that he was into space as much as he was. So this is a beautiful tribute to him in his honor. And I'm sorry that Caitlin, his wife, was unable to make it. Things got changed around, but you will get to meet her later. She is he passed away in January 22 of this year. And Caitlin found a wonderful funeral directory in a funeral home in DC. And this is where Celestis came in. And I'm so thankful that I'm going to say it's just a godsend. It was truly meant to be, because this is the most beautiful, loving tribute in honor of Zach. So I had no idea that he loved space and universe, and he would always question and ask Caitlin, there's more to life. There's more to life than, just living here on Earth. So his fulfillment is to go into space and have his little space flight and come back down back to Earth. So I'm just honored that I got to be Zach's mom for 33 years. And he touched so many lives and leaves behind so many students and teachers and staff and colleagues and friends. So I'm just sad that they couldn't be here with us, but I know that we're all together in heart. So thank you for all being here. And I send my deepest and dearest condolences to you and your families. And may Godspeed, and may our loved ones fly high in space. Thank you very much.
The family for Scott Kareem Donahue, followed by the family for Robert Arnold Smith.
My condolences to all of you, and thank you for coming. I really wasn't expecting to speak, but since all of you have bravely come up, I thought I would too. And I want to thank Celestis and Colby and all the whole group have been so supportive of us coming here, so thank you. My husband, Scott Donahue, we lived in Washington, D.C. Donahue and brother of Sherry Donahue. He leaves behind myself, Shazia, our daughters Tara and Maya, our son-in-laws Andrew and Alex, and our grandchildren Adam and Arya. Scott actually died in his sleep. He was gripped by cancer, and he survived 10 months. It was very fast for us. But basically, his last wish, one of his last wishes, was to see our last daughter married. And so he was at the hospital streaming the wedding while I was in Delaware hosting the wedding. And he was very pleased, and he spoke to my daughter and son-in-law after the wedding, and he was in high, way up there, so excited about the wedding and everything. So 6 hours later, he actually passed away in the hospital. So you could tell that he just stayed on to see his daughter married. His other wish was always to fly up to space once he heard that SpaceX was going up and taking people up. But, it was always in the back of his mind, but he never thought that it would happen. And Celestis is making this happen. So thank you again. I also want to thank some very special friend of mine and Scott's, Corinna, without whom I wouldn't have been here. So thank you. She supported me in coming out from DC, and she drove herself 6 hours to meet me and to be here. So thank you, Corinna. Ever since Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin stepped onto the moon in 1969, Scott, at 8 years old, began to be fascinated by space exploration. Although Scott was never an astronaut himself, he vicariously experienced space by poring over articles and magazines and watching hundreds of hours of documentaries and shows and movies and visiting Udvar Hazy Air and Space Museum because we live in DC. So that was his favorite haunt. And Scott, at his 60th birthday, our daughters Tara and Maya has Scott's name inscribed on the wall of honor at the Udvar Hazy Museum, and which I was very proud of. And finally, true to Scott's long passion for space exploration, our family is sending a portion of his remains up to space through the Celestis Memorial Spaceflight to fulfill his yet another one of his dreams. And I want to thank everybody and Celestis for making this true. I also wanted to say Scott was very much a worldly person. He was born in Oregon in a small town, and he came to Grinnell, Iowa, and Grinnell College where we met. Then we went on to do our master's at University of Rochester, so he became from a West Coaster to an we raised a beautiful family, multicultural family, and you'll see, if you see the website again, you'll see my daughters Tara and myself, dressed in our Indian Bangladeshi clothing, and he embraced people from all over the world. I mean, he was such a friendly person, and I just think of him as a citizen of space, of the entire world. And he was an amazing guy. And this was our tribute to him because he really wanted to go up to space. So, Scotty, enjoy. Thank you. John.
The family for Robert Arnold Smith, followed by the family for John Mitchell.
Hi, you ready? Yeah.
Hi.
My name's Melissa. This is my mom, Cheryl. We're for my dad, Robert. We didn't really prepare anything, so I'm just going to say a few things about what I remember. Oh my God. So he was an aerospace engineer at TRW. He retired in 2002. Shortly before, he helped to construct the Chandra X-ray Observatory satellite, which is still up in space from 1999 until now, still sending back images, and it was only supposed to be up there about like 8 or 9 years. This is the pin that he got when it launched. I remember going to the open house and asking him what it was in the big white bubble. He would never tell me, even to like the end. He would never tell me, and I still want to know what's in the damn bubble. But yeah, oh my gosh, he was always so supportive of everything I did. I went back to school. I wanted to go back to school to get my bachelor's in 2019, but he ended up getting sick, and he said, wait till I'm better. So I waited until he finished his chemo. He had stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Finished his chemo, I went back to school. About 6 months later, he passed away. But I just remember him being the life of everything and teaching me how to drive stick, and I could go better backwards than I could forwards. The bear is, he gave me this shortly before he passed, so it's gone everywhere with me that I've ever gone with him. Yeah, and I'm an only kid, so here's my mom.
Yeah, I met Bob. I met Bob back just right out of high school, and met him we were running around together we met and married in 5, and nobody ever believed that it would last. But by the grace of God and by talking and laughing and pulling each other's hair, we made it 10 days before our 50th anniversary. I says, I was going to be there before he did. And he said, no, it'd be a lot easier if I did, because that way you can handle the bills. That's one thing he worried about. But he was a very, very loving husband and made a home for us. And he was always there for us. And we just loved him so much. And this is,
He talked to me.
she ended up putting this together. I had no idea.
He talked to me a couple weeks before he passed, and he's like, if you ever find a company that sends them into space, just do it for me. Don't even think twice. And so I did a Google search, and Celestis popped up, and here we are. Finally, 2.5 years later, thanks to
So thank you very much for being with all of us,
Yeah.
because it's hard to do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
The family for John Mitchell, followed by the family for Patrick Murray. It's all yours.
Oh, great. I'm very, very nervous. I was not expecting to stand up here, and I was sitting in the front, and when I walked away over there, I didn't realize there were so many people here. So that just added even more to my anxiety. Since I wasn't really prepared to speak off the cuff, and if I do, I know I'm going to cry, I just figured I'd kind of read part of the bio that we sent in. So my son, John, let me start out by saying he was my gift from God. And there's nothing else I can say beyond that. He was born December of 1981 in Kentucky. He was, I'm sorry, I'll be crying. I won't even be able to read this. He will always be remembered as a true shining star on this planet who would light up any room that he entered. If it wasn't his $1 million smile, it was his bright, colorful clothing, always with shoes to match. He even painted a pair of sneakers that resembled the galaxy when he was like in his 20s. This was not a little boy. This was a grown man doing this.
He moved to New Jersey, where he gained a stepfather, my husband, and 4 new brothers. After finishing high school, he went back to Kentucky, completed a degree in psychology from UK. He moved to Charleston, where he studied for his master's. Unfortunately, his cancer diagnosis brought him back to New Jersey, where he could be near me and his sisters, Megan and Ashley, all of whom he adored. His commitment to protecting his family was fully evident. He once mentioned that he was more worried about how his family would handle his diagnosis than he was about his own loss of life. His selfless concern for others was again demonstrated when he signed up to be an organ donor. He was a gentle soul who cherished his family and his lifelong friends. He always knew what to say and was quick with a compliment, especially with the ladies, or at least that's what he would say. He was the ever-smiling friend who was always polite and mannerly. He had a fierce spirit, but he was extremely sentimental and thoughtful, which was evident when I started having to clear through all of his stuff and found tons and tons of, I think he saved every postcard and card I ever wrote him. He loved being the center of attention and making people laugh, and he emceed at musical events where these talents were on full display. There were many things that brought joy to his life. He loved his car. He'd always work on her. He was a huge Marvel fan. For Halloween, he built his own Iron Man suit, complete with a helmet that raised and lowered, lights in the hands, and arc reactor. And for Halloween, his favorite holiday, he would go to costume contests and invariably win, except when he would go against his friend who was dressed as the Predator. Sometimes the Predator would win instead of Iron Man. He loved tacos. A simple Taco Tuesday with friends was his favorite. Of course, no meal was complete without the hottest hot sauce you could possibly put on anything. His love of nature was apparent at a young age when he would sneak out of the house during severe weather alerts to capture potential tornadoes on film. That sense of adventure never left him. He made it his goal to try everything from rock climbing to cliff jumping to eating a scorpion, followed by a tequila shot at his sister's wedding celebration. He was equally happy flying a kite, hand-feeding squirrels, or just lying in a hammock enjoying a beautiful day. He would just stare at the skies and dream of what existed beyond. He had an artistic brain that allowed him to view his surroundings in a way others could not conceive. He loved using his talents to build elaborate creations, from Lego space labs as a child to intricate gaming consoles with flashing spinning lights. He was a huge techie who always kept up with the latest innovations. Unfortunately for him, that made him the go-to guy for all the family members like myself who didn't understand technology, and that would be a little annoying to him, but he would bear through with us. Once I was reading on his Facebook page, and I came across something that he said he had written more than anything else in this life. I would like to go to this. I wish to bring my family, which obviously and Keeley, those were his 2 best friends. He spoke of visiting Cherry Springs State Park to witness the celestial skies. In his final days, he whispered to his sister that he had just dreamed of travel. When asked where, he replied, Belize, Japan, and then he whispered, outer space. And when his sister asked him how he was going to get there, he said, rocket ship. And so his sister found out about Celestis, and this was before his passing, and it was just meant to be. Your company is truly a gift from the heavens to us. It really is. So this is our way of showing our love and letting him fulfill his dream. He happily carved his unique path through this world. We can hear him now quoting his favorite character, Iron Man, saying, following's not really my style. So here's to you, John John. Go explore and fly among those stars. You will forever be our superhero. We love you, 3000. Thank you.
John, you're a great man. You're a great stepson. And we love you. We always think about you every day, and you're always in our heart. Thank you.
Thank you all.
The family for Patrick Murray, followed by the family for Cy Vang.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Ingrid Murray, and yes, I am not prepared either, so I'm just going to ramble a little bit. I met Patrick in 1988. His brother and his sister-in-law, who I worked with, set us up. We were married in 9 months. Yeah, it was quick, and we didn't have a lot of time together, during that time because he was in the military and he went off for a little bit of training. So when he came back, 6 months after we met, we walked down the aisle. They were taking bets at the wedding, whether we were going to make it a year. Everybody was having fun with that. And Pat's like, yeah, we're going to make it. He was taking on everybody. So he was a joker. He loved to make people laugh. He enjoyed time with his family, with his brothers. On the weekends, we always had Dungeons and Dragons with the guys. He had 3 other brothers, and they would come, and there would be a gallon of onion dip and beer and cigars. So they'd stay up all weekend and play Dungeons and Dragons or whatever war game it was. And sometimes we'd have other company that joined and friends that joined as well. But yeah, it was quite an experience. Also loved his nephews. He did a lot of things with them. He had just huge amounts of fun. There was always, the parents would say, Patrick, don't give my kids Mountain Dew. 5 minutes before they went home, here, have Mountain Dew, kid. You know, I don't have to deal with you. I'm sending you home. You know, different things. He'd take the boys out and they'd play in mud and make mud pies and get all dirty and so forth. He loved science fiction, and he actually loved rocketry and anything that flied or that flies. He watched all the Star Trek, everything on the Sci-Fi Channel. When I first met him, he had a bumper sticker on his car, "Beam me up, Scotty, there's no intelligent life down here." So he's also going to be on the next Enterprise flight, so that's very suitable. This one's kind of like a roller coaster ride, warming up for the next one. And I'm sure he'll enjoy that as well. Yeah, he was similar to our astronaut friend here, with the nephews, who were the teenagers, not my husband at the time. They'd shoot rockets and things in the front yard and burn up the front field and burn up my rose bushes and, you know, all sorts of neat little man kind of experiments. So, but he loved his nephews. We didn't have children of our own. So we had nephews and 1 niece, and he loved them all dearly. And he loved his brother and his entire family. A few years ago, we moved to Petersburg, Alaska from Bryantown, Maryland. And there he kind of became a little bit He worked with the Humane Association. We fostered dogs and cats and what other kind of animals they had in town. And he did everything he could to help that environment and help that community. And it was just a beautiful place. It was a wonderful place to live. It is a wonderful place to live. So that's about it. Thank you.
The family for Cy Vang, followed by the family for J. Clinton Hall.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wendy, and the participant on board is Cy, my sister, Cy Vang, and she's my only sister. And while getting ready today, I was reminded of one of the things that I miss most about her was just getting ready for where sharing our opinions, like, what do our outfits look like? Do I look okay like this or like that? And this feels like one of those mornings, and I'm really glad that I'm here to share the moment and hearing all the stories that you guys shared. Thank you. My sister, she was our New Year baby. She was conceived after the withdrawal of the Vietnam War, and my dad was part of the U.S. Special Guerrilla Units, SGU, that was recruited by the CIA. With the withdrawal from the Vietnam War, we settled, my sister and my family, they settled into Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And she was born January 1st. We got here in the year 76, and she was conceived January 1st, 7th. So she was our New Year baby. Field throughout her career, and in 2015, she decided, I'm gonna work, and she traveled 40 countries. And what I think was really cool was that during her travels, she was able to work with Myanmar and Afghanistan children refugees and tutor English for them. But what she thinks was the coolest that she did was being able to climb on the top of Mount Everest. To her, she felt she accomplished a lot by doing that. So in 2019, my dad got sick, and so she stopped her world travels and she came back and settled in San Francisco. My dad and me were from Sacramento, so she decided to go back to where she was originally working in San Francisco. And on 2020, January, the pandemic, of course, hit, and my dad passed away on January 2020, and then 3 months later, we found out she had cervical cancer, and so just November of 2020, she passed away. And everything was at a standstill. So thinking about visiting, making trips to the country and scattering some of her ashes, that was out of the question because of the shutdown. And so upon researching, I came across Celestis, and I was like, this is something she would really love, because she would video chat with my children there, which were 3 and 2 when she was still here. And she would use one of the app features where she's the astronaut and they're an astronaut, they're in space. So it's one of those filter features. And it was something that she was the cool, fun auntie that she would like to do with my kids, just do funny video chats like that. So I was like, okay, Celestis seems like the place, and I'm sure that she would have loved it. She would have agreed with me. So although it's been arduous and having had to come from a deep sense of grieving and mourning, to have this trying to do something that will make her smile, I'm finding myself to smile again when I'm thinking of her and knowing that she's going to be on this mission. And so, although it still hurts to think about her, I'm really excited for my sister. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Our final family will be the family for J. Clinton Hall.
Thank you all very much. I'm here representing my brother, J. Clinton Hall, or Clint Hall is what we called him. His dream was to be the first blind astronaut. He was born in 1959, and as you've heard today, everybody practically who was born in that era experienced the love for space, and he was one of those. Even as a small child, and he was born blind, and over the years with various surgeries, he did get some sight back. And he would sit right up close to the television screen and watch Lost in Space and Star Trek, which of course were the shows to watch in that day. And he just developed a love for space and a fascination for space. We live close to Houston, Texas, which was very fortunate for us with him and his vision issues. My mother always thought that she had 3-day measles when she was pregnant with him, and that's why he was born blind. He was perfectly normal in every other sense. He was tall and broad-shouldered and very handsome, but he just had this horrible vision issue. Over the years and before laser surgery, the doctors in Houston who were very advanced, in fact, his particular doctor treated some of the astronauts with NASA. So there were a lot of cutting edge type procedures being done there at the time. But this was before laser surgery, so he had long surgeries even as a 6-year-old, trying to help him get his vision back. But over the years, those surgeries created scar tissue, which developed into glaucoma, and his vision was failing. Even he had to have an eye removed. He was the beneficiary of a cornea transplant, and all of this, but still late in his life, his vision was failing. He died suddenly of a massive heart attack in May of 2020, and not COVID related. But he lived a remarkable life. My mother wanted him to never think of his vision issue that would hold him back. And as a small child, my mother fought hard for him to be mainstreamed in the public school system. And remember, this is the early 60s when there were special schools for special needs children. And he started out there, but he was perfectly normal in every other sense, but there were no special accommodations for him in the public school system at that time. So she fought hard to have books on printed in big print for him. This is pre-computer days, so that he could, and asked that he sit at the front of the room at school. But, it was hard for children, children are cruel, to accept him, but always his personality was to look forward and not retreat emotionally because of this, the cruelness that they did. He just never let it get to him. And even after he passed away, some of his long-term schoolmates, got in contact with me and told me stories about how they were impressed with the way that he overcame a lot of that. He never could ride a bicycle. He did get a 3-wheeler late in life, the big 3-wheel bicycles, and he really loved that. He, of course, never drove a car, but he always had this dream of going off into space. And so when he passed away, his wife, he was married for 10 years at the time that he died, and her children from a prior marriage and I wanted to give this to him to remember him. He had tenacity, as we heard earlier, and that is so much what his life was about. He had a drive to always be better. He was a great human being. If he had just born in a very different era, he might have gone into space, especially if he had lived a few years longer. With the commercialization of space, I'm sure he would have been on one of those flights. Thank you.
Public speaking is not easy. I taught public speaking in the Air Force for a while, and there was a survey that we used to use. I forget when it was done or how long ago, but it asked people what was the scariest thing they've ever encountered in their life. And public speaking always came before death. So public speaking is not an easy thing. And it's awesome for us to see those of you who are not used to speaking in public, just get up here on the sheer love for your loved one. So well done. Oh, we have one more. Fantastic. Okay. And the family for Dr. Neil Sean.
You guys inspired us to get up extemporaneously to say something. So I'm here with my brother, Darren. Our father was Neil Schoen. He was a physicist, a brilliant physicist. And and experimental. And I think that's what we shared. We shared a kind of wish to experiment in thought. And I think space is a kind of poetic idea also, as well as a reality. And we did a book together when I was in graduate school at CalArts called 74 Steps. And we'll bring it tomorrow. We have 2 books. And I took photographs, and we went to the Fermilab Particle Accelerator, and it was his theories of the expansion and contraction of the universe. I didn't quite understand it, but he said that there were 74 steps, and that's the title of the book. There are 74 steps, and so it's his drawings and my photographs, and I'm really happy that we did that together. He was a really wonderful father. He was always joking, always laughing, never angry, just made jokes all the time. And when he died, he always used to say, life is a comedy to those who think and a tragedy to those who feel. Whoops, sorry. It was COVID. I was in Germany and I couldn't come back to be there for the funeral. So we're really happy to be here with my mom, Wendy, and Neil's wife and his brother, Ed, and my brother. To share this with all of you guys. I feel like these are his people. I'm pretty sure he would have been happy.
And I just wanted to say a few things. I think it's very interesting how everybody's lives here kind of overlap to all end up at the same spot. Our father also worked at TRW, like somebody else's family here. He worked on the TDRS satellites. And like my sister said, he was a wonderful father. He instilled in me a love of all things science and space. Growing up, I remember that when he taught me to read, the first book I ever read was called "You Will Go to the Moon," which I think the clock's running out on that one. But you could just tell from an early age that he was very inspired by that concept. He taught me things all throughout my life. He won all of my school science fairs, took home the grand prize on all of those. He worked at a lot in science through his whole life. He worked for Boeing, like I said, TRW, a company called Task. He was an avid skier and ice skater. He played ice hockey for a very long time, and until a very bad cross-check ended his promising NHL career. And just wanted to say that we miss him a lot, and very much looking forward to tomorrow. Thank you all.
Okay, so now I'd like to bring our CEO and co-founder, Charlie Chafer, back up to give you your pre-mission briefing. Charlie?
Thanks, man. Yes, sir. Well, I don't know about you. I do know about you, but I felt the love. And one of the things that's so great since 1994, when I founded the company, all of our missions have tears and sadness, but you always hear laughter as well. This is a joyous occasion. And in that spirit, I'm going to make an attempt at a bad pun here, because I too read the You Will Go to the Moon book, and it reminded me of a fortune cookie that I once received that said, one day you will go to the moon because in school you took up space. Kind of an accurate description of my academic career as well. Couple of housekeepers. First of all, let's remember the 31 families that are represented here today are part of, I think it's 118 families who are participating in this mission and could not, cannot, chose not to be here today. We go to great lengths to try to create as much content, some live, all recorded and all preserved and presented via our YouTube. But I wanted to recognize all of the families that aren't here today and to let everybody know, go to our website and read their biographies and learn about the other folks that are joining your loved one on this flight. We again go to great lengths. You may think we were tsunamiing you with emails. Hey, send us your photos. Hey, send us your biography. Hey, here's the live streamcast. We do that because we know just how important what we do is to our clients, without whom we wouldn't be here. And so just a moment to recognize all of the participants on our 19th flight, the Aurora mission. Secondly, the technology today just outstrips my mental capacity, but I understand we had a little bit of a dropout on the Wi-Fi signal early on in the cast. I think we made a tremendous recovery. Hopefully the only part that you missed was me speaking, because I do that a lot and you can always hear me. But again, we've recorded the entire proceeding and it will be up on our YouTube channel as quickly as we can do it. So if there was a hiccup, first we apologize. Secondly, the team got it back together really quick. And it's just amazing. We fended off 2 hack attempts from a point. I always think, you know, the people that do that, if they just put those talents to use for the good of humanity, how much better off we'd be. But life is what it is, and we, as I said before, we persevere, and we appreciate all of your patience. This is the time in each mission where I get to talk to you all about what's about to happen. And it's an important point because we are dealing with rocket science here. This is not call up an Uber and get a ride to space. This is, even at the level of prosaic suborbital launches, a successful flight is like a good golf swing. A whole lot of things got to come together at the same time to be able to pull it off. And so what I need to say to you today is that tomorrow we'll all go out, bring your coats, and we're there to witness a very rare event still on this planet, which is a launch into space. And when you're out there, hopefully you've enjoyed your breakfast burrito and your cup of coffee. You need to remember that 3 things can happen, and you need to be prepared that any one of these 3 things can happen tomorrow. The first, and by far the most likely, this is a pretty simple machine as all things go, is that we'll have a great success. You'll witness a projectile going from 0 to Mach 6 in 2 seconds. I've told many of you, don't try to take a picture. We'll get all the photography, we'll get all the video. You need to just enjoy the flight because it goes quick and it doesn't repeat once it's gone. That's the most likely outcome. This is our 9th mission. We've only had 1 failure, quote unquote, in that, our 9th Earthrise mission, our 19th overall mission. Since 2008, when we were flying before there was a Spaceport America out of a guy's ranch, which is now Spaceport America, the first mission didn't quite reach space, came back to Earth, we recovered it, flew everybody again. So knock on wood, that's the only mission failure that we've ever encountered in our suborbital service. And that was a long time ago. But, so we expect, and we have really high confidence in our partners at Up Aerospace, that you'll see a successful flight. That's one. Number two, it might not succeed. It is, after all, rocket science. It's a very simple vehicle, but it has a very complex set of actions that all, as I said, all have to go right at the same time in order to achieve. Very unlikely that we will have such a failure, but I have to tell you, we have had one. And so if that happens, I think about myself, which is, I've told my staff and my wife, when I go, just keep flying me until you run out of me. And the thought there is, in the event, why do we ask you for a larger sample that we're going to fly? It's because we have a reflight guarantee. If in fact we lose a mission, I know I would strap me on that thing again and fly me again. That would be my reaction. And I suspect almost all of your loved ones will feel the same way. And we will do that. And we will invite you back in the, again, highly unlikely event. Solid rockets generally don't fail. There are failure modes. The grain can crack. Very unlikely. But you all have to be ready for that. Third is, so one, great success. We go home. We'll get you your capsules back. You'll know that you achieved your loved one's dream. Option two, we stub our toe. Don't worry about it. We'll strap you on again and fly you again at no cost. And we will get your loved one to space. We have never not done that. And we won't ever not do that. Option three is a little bit kind of halfway in the middle. We might have a launch delay. What does that mean? Well, I am fond of quoting my hero boss, Deke Slayton, who, when confronted with the notion of a delay, made the simple, very astronaut statement, well, NASA doesn't give out any awards for an on-time failure, right? Makes sense. You got to get it right. It's got to work. And what can cause a delay? Weather. One time, the only other time on our suborbital service that we've had anything other than an on-time success, lightning was striking around the launch pad. And we couldn't go out to see the launch, and we had a one-day delay, and we flew it the next day. We fly out of New Mexico for a lot of reasons. We're higher altitude. The weather is almost always beautiful. I've told several of you, 6 months ago, I became a New Mexico resident. I now live in Santa Fe. I loved it so much coming here that I said, I got to be one of these folks. So the weather is almost always good. The big concern that we'll have tomorrow, likely in terms of weather, will be winds aloft. The way that this rocket is configured, it has no internal guidance system. The guidance system, and you'll see tomorrow, is a rail that they do a mathematical calculation against the winds. They decide, oh, the winds are too extreme, because we got to land in the White Sands Missile Range, which is, I believe it's about 200 miles by 50 miles or something. So that's the landing zone. And if the wind is likely to blow our payload out of that zone, we don't want to be landing on Las Cruces or anything. So they'll make a decision, winds aloft, we can't fly. And you'll see that when you're there tomorrow. You'll see them flying weather balloons. And they'll be measuring the winds. And all of that culminates in what they call a firing solution, which is, where do we point this rail that's guiding our rocket? so that it can sustain the winds and come back down where it's supposed to. And that's a real-time calculation. We obviously do a lot. We don't control the winds. Another element of delay is something isn't working on the payload. After all, we fly always as a secondary payload. Now, this is the most important payload in the planet to you guys and to me, but we're one of several. We're not the biggest. We're not the most expensive. We're certainly not the most complex. So as experiments, all of which designed to gain additional knowledge either about the performance of space systems or the performance of physical systems in microgravity, if those guys aren't working correct, they're going to hold the count. We may wait out there for a couple hours, be prepared. Or they may say, we can't go today. Again, that's a possibility. It's not as likely as it is when you're on a Falcon or a Vulcan or a Atlas, because they have a lot more things that can go wrong than this system does. But I need you all to understand that we're part of a team, and if the team ain't ready, the team don't go. It's that simple. And I believe that we've communicated that throughout the process of working with you. We try very hard. As I said, you're getting overwhelmed with emails from us, and you're getting all of the benefit of our knowledge as to when it's time to go. We believe it's time to go, and as a result of that, we're all here ready for that flight tomorrow. So those are all the downers. But the thing that I'll leave you with on that front is we will fly your loved one to space, which is what you contracted with us to do. We're not in the guarantee of launch date business. Really, nobody is. If you followed at all the space world, you're aware of the recent Artemis launch, an enormously important day in the history of space. That guy was about 10 years behind the original schedule, and you saw him roll it in and roll it out of the VAB in Florida a couple of times. Again, there's no value in an on-time failure. You want this mission to succeed. So that's my obligation to talk to you about and to ask for your support and understanding in the event that we're told we don't contribute to the decision at all. We're passengers. But if we're told it's a no-go, it is a no-go, but it's not a permanent no-go. It's a temporary no-go. Again, I don't expect it. This is a really good team that flies for Up Aerospace. A really enormous amount of respect. They started it in Jerry Larson's garage. Now, it's a really nice garage, no doubt about that. But that is, it's kind of like Mike's early experiments with flight. This is one of the most entrepreneurially successful rocket teams that you've never heard of. And I just have enormous respect for Up Aerospace. So, last point is one of the hallmarks of being a small, low-cost, innovative company is flexibility. So we're about to experience a little bit more flexibility. You've already experienced flexibility number one, which is reversing the tour and the memorial service date. We're all about to experience flexibility number two when we go on this tour today. I just received word from Up Aerospace that they've been battling high winds out at the site, and that's caused them not to yet load the rocket on the rail for showtime, which is the tour time today. And as a result of that, they're pretty far behind their own schedule. They were supposed to be able to take the afternoon off today to prepare the mission. So we're not going to go, they've closed the launch pad is the bottom line. We're not going to go right up to the pad today, but we will go to where you'll see it, where you'll be able to feel, you know, when this enterprise here in New Mexico started, it was started really by 3 people. You've heard of 2 of them, Sir Richard, Governor Bill Richardson, and a very energetic young man named Rick Homans, who was the he was a cabinet secretary for Richardson, and he personally drove the development of this $250 million facility you're about to see. What Rick said to you all at our first launch was, Spaceport America is now consecrated ground because the families and the loved ones that were flying cause it to be that way. So I want you to feel that. The way we're going to operate is we'll all get to the bus. We'll get to where we're going to view the launch from. We'll ask in order the bus folks to get out, or the passengers to be able to get out a little bit and see where you're going to be tomorrow. You'll be able to see the launch pad. The rocket may or may not be up by then. It's just a function of where they are in their preparation. But you're going to see everything that you're going to see tomorrow from as close. And by the way, we're less than a half a mile from the pad. If you take a tour of the Kennedy Space Center before a big launch, you get to about 3 miles away. It's a very personal experience. So that's going to be a little bit of a change in the tour, but constant innovation and flexibility and support of Space America, we've added an element to the tour, real time. As Bruce Springsteen once said about himself, yes, we're that good, which is a opportunity to see a full-scale model of Spaceship Two, which we had not included originally in the tour because we were worried about timing. But Spaceport America reacted very quickly today, and they're going to make it available for us to go see that. And if you know what Spaceship Two is, it's a human space rocket for tourism that will fly here. I guess the current estimate is next year, and start taking tourists to orbit from Spaceport America. So it's a really cool machine, and you'll also see what $250 million dumped on the desert in New Mexico looks like in terms of a really amazing terminal building that, to me, it looks like a UFO that kind of crashed into the ground, and you can see it, but it's really an amazing glimpse into the future. So we will take you there, and you'll get to see that as well, and then we'll bring you back. And we'll be in constant touch, as we always are, with our friends at Up Aerospace. And we want them, you know, it was a really simple call for them. Okay, do we take a couple hours and host everybody on the pad, or do we actually do the things we need to do to fly tomorrow? And guess what? That was an easy decision. We all want to see a flight tomorrow. So that's all the news that I have right now. I want to say again, thank you. And I want to say that you're fixing to have an amazing experience and to fulfill a lot of dreams. And the last thing I want to say before we go to our reception is I want to thank my team. Some of us, Christiana, my wife Lygia, others have been with us for 27 years. Some of us, Colby, Randy, are getting ready to complete their first year, or even their first month. Others, Keith, Nathan, Mark, are kind of in the middle. But all of those folks bring a commitment to excellence. I don't hire anybody that I don't think gets that. And we're devoted to you all. If you have any questions, if you have any needs that you think we can take care of, we're here, we're ready. Oh, and sorry, I left out one of our newest staff members, Emily Carney, who many of you have worked with and know. So we're a small team, we're a successful team, and we want to produce the best experience possible for you guys. So I think I've rambled on long enough. Maybe the Wi-Fi went down again. I don't think so. But please listen to a couple of final sounds, including what's become a tradition at all of our launches, bagpipe solo of Amazing Grace will end. And then you get to walk all the way over next door, join us at a reception. Mike and Donna have agreed to be there and to meet you. And, you know, you just can't get enough time with folks that have actually made the journey that your loved one's about to meet. So please take advantage of it. He made a kind offer to us earlier today. All right. Did anyone not? It always happens that people get inspired and say, okay, I want to talk. And I don't want to miss anybody. So I want to do one last review of the group. I don't see anybody jumping up and down. So we'll say, see you on the tour. And please, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, everyone. We'll have the reception next door. Just go out the doors here, make a left, and it's the room right to your left. We'll see you over there.